Oscar Piastri finished the Canadian Grand Prix 2 full laps behind the race winner, outside the points in 11th place, with a damaged car, a time penalty on his record, and a retired rival behind him. And that was after one of the worst strategic calls McLaren has made all season. This wasn't a small off day. This was everything going wrong at once. The tire call, the collision, the brake issue, the front wing, the penalty. Every single thing that could go sideways did. Before a single racing lap was completed, McLaren had already put themselves in a hole. Both Piastri and Norris were sent out on intermediate tires. The track was slightly damp from earlier rain, and there were a few spots of drizzle in the air. So on the surface, it wasn't a crazy idea. There was a logic to it. If conditions got wetter, they'd be heroes. They didn't get wetter. By the time the formation lap began, the rain had already stopped. The track was drying fast, and Piastri knew immediately it was the wrong call. He got on the radio and told the team they'd made a mistake. Before the lights had even gone out, Piastri described it honestly after the race. He said that between the national anthem and getting into the car, the ground had gotten noticeably wetter, and he genuinely believed the intermediates would work if they could get temperature into them. But then the rain stopped. He said, and these are his exact words, "If it had rained a little bit more, we would have looked like heroes. It didn't, so we looked like idiots." That one sentence tells you everything about how fine the margins are at this level, and how brutally a single weather shift can swing a race before it's even really begun. Because the intermediates were useless on a drying track, both McLarens had to come in almost immediately. Piastri pitted at the end of the very first racing lap to switch to dry tires. That's not a minor inconvenience. Pitting on lap 1 drops you to the very back of the field. You lose track position, you lose momentum, and suddenly a car that should be fighting near the front is stuck in traffic trying to work its way through slower cars. That's a completely different race to the one you planned. From that point, Piastri's afternoon became a damage limitation exercise. He was pushing hard, trying to recover as many positions as possible, but the car wasn't behaving the way he needed it to. The tires weren't giving him the front-end grip he was looking for, and he was struggling to brake consistently into the slower corners. He was in a difficult situation, too far back to score good points, but pushing hard enough that the risk of an error was rising with every lap. That error wasn't far away. On lap 13, Piastri arrived at the turn 10 hairpin, one of the heaviest braking zones on the entire calendar, and locked up. He was attempting to pass Alex Albon's Williams on the inside. He'd made the move, committed to it, but he couldn't slow the car down in time. The McLaren slid into the side of the Williams, causing significant damage to Albon's car. The contact was enough to put Albon out of the race entirely. Piastri got back on the radio straight away. "Box. I've got damage." What makes this incident more layered than it first appeared is what the team radio revealed afterward. Just seconds before the collision, Piastri's race engineer had warned him about high rear brake temperatures. Piastri had also reported some difficulty with gear shifts through the chicane just before the hairpin. Whether those brake temperatures directly caused the lockup isn't confirmed, but the timing is hard to ignore. Piastri didn't make excuses. He apologized to Albon directly after the race and took full responsibility. "I felt like I was going into the corner pretty carefully, but locked the front, and that was it. It was not my finest moment." Albon, for his part, was measured. He called it unfortunate, admitted things had just started to feel better in the car before the contact, and said what his team really needs right now is just clean laps and rhythm, something they've struggled to find this season. The stewards reviewed the incident and handed Piastri a 10-second time penalty for causing the collision. No one argued with it. Not even McLaren team principal Andrea Stella was direct when he spoke after the race. In terms of Oscar's incident, the stewards penalized the incident, and this is deserved. He called it a misjudgment, acknowledged there was probably pressure on Piastri to recover positions quickly, and said the penalty from the stewards was the right call, but the punishment didn't end with the 10 seconds on the clock. Piastri also had to pit a second time to replace the damaged front wing. That dropped him even further back. By the time he crossed the finish line in 11th, He was 2 full laps behind race winner Kimi Antonelli. The leading group, Antonelli, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and Charles Leclerc, were in a completely different race by that point. Stella was honest about the pace picture too. Even without the collision and the penalty, he didn't believe McLaren had the speed on the day to challenge at the front. The tire temperatures were never right. The drivers were locking up and running wide, and the front tires just weren't responding. "I don't think we exhibited any competitive pace at the level that we have exhibited up until Sunday," he admitted. If Piastri's race was bad, Norris didn't have it much better, just for completely different reasons. Norris also started on intermediates, also pitted early, but was actually running in a strong position after recovering from the opening lap chaos. Then the car began overheating, forcing an unplanned stop to clean the radiators. It wasn't a call they wanted to make, but they had no choice. And then, independent of that, the gearbox failed. Stella confirmed it was 2 entirely separate problems. The overheating and the gearbox failure were not connected. The gearbox issue, he said, would have happened regardless of anything else that went on during the race. It was just one of those days where everything arrives at once. If there's a day to have all the problems in a single race distance, then that was the day, Stella said. Reigning world champion Lando Norris parked his McLaren and didn't see the checkered flag. For a team that had been performing strongly earlier in the season, Canada was a significant step back. The consequences of Canada stretch well beyond just one bad Sunday. McLaren now sit 113 points behind Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship. That's not an impossible gap, but it is a serious one. And it grew because of a combination of a wrong strategic call, an on-track collision, and a mechanical failure, all landing in the same afternoon. For Piastri specifically, it's a race he'll want to move past quickly. He's been one of the more consistent performers this season, and Canada was an outlier, but outliers cost points. And points are what championships are built on. The next race is Monaco. A completely different challenge. Narrow streets, no room for error, and a circuit where starting position and clean laps matter more than almost anywhere else on the calendar. Albon mentioned Monaco by name after the race, hoping for a smoother weekend. McLaren will be thinking the same thing. The pace is there in the car. Canada showed that on a bad day, things can collapse very quickly. The job now is to make sure a day like this stays a one-off. So that's the full picture of what happened to Oscar Piastri and McLaren in Montreal. A tire call that backfired before the race properly started. A lockup that took out a rival. A time penalty the team accepted was fair. A second pit stop for front wing damage. And a teammate retirement through no fault of his own, all in one afternoon. Monaco is next. We'll see if McLaren can reset.